All right, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to unpack this one with you guys today because we're tackling a thought experiment that literally flips a classic trope entirely on its head. We're going to break down the gritty, realistic logistics of being a pure biological anomaly. Like, what actually happens if you are the one single human being on planet Earth who just stops aging? We're not talking about magic spells here, we're talking about the raw, cold math of time, identity, and survival. Okay, let's dive right into this. I really want you to put yourself directly in the protagonist's shoes for a second. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your biological clock has just stopped ticking. Your cells aren't degrading, you don't age a single day past your absolute prime. Sounds like a total dream, right? Well, as we're about to see, this flips from a fun comic book fantasy into a high-stakes psychological thriller real quick. Because, pop culture loves to paint immortality as this glamorous VIP ticket to endless wealth and adventure. You're usually hanging out in some cool vampire coven, or maybe a secret society of immortals sharing drinks in a shadowy speakeasy. But the harsh reality? The math changes completely when it's just you, when you are the only one. You've got no mortal peers, you are a biological anomaly of exactly one person, completely alone in a world that is heavily obsessed with aging and death. And your existence wouldn't just be this one long, monotonous blur of time. Actually, it unfolds across a chronological survivor's journey. Basically, four distinct, increasingly complex eras that escalate from just slight social awkwardness all the way to deep time isolation over the next few centuries. So let's map out exactly what those eras would look like. Era 1, the illusion of good genetics. This covers roughly years 1 through 15. So for that first decade, life is fantastic. You get to soak up all the perks of youth while your peers start wrestling with the harsh realities of time. They're groaning about back pain, spotting their first gray hairs, dealing with suddenly slow metabolisms. And you look exactly the same as you did 10 years ago. When your friends inevitably ask for your skincare secret, you just laugh it off. You say, oh, just good hydration, or maybe you chalk it up to a clean diet. It's a fun little party trick. But that clock keeps ticking. By year 15, that physical gap becomes mathematically impossible to ignore. You show up to your high school reunion, and the vibe goes from nostalgic catching up to profoundly uncomfortable. People start to stare. The whole illusion of good genetics thing, that starts to completely crack. Which brings us to Era 2, the global specimen. This is years 20 to 50. This is undeniably the most dangerous phase of your infinitely long life. The tension really ramps up here, because think about it. We live in a hyper-connected digital world. Having a frozen face quickly becomes a massive liability. You simply can't keep your lack of aging a secret forever. Eventually, things like medical records, routine passport renewals with those biometric scans, or just your massive social media footprints, they're going to flag you in a system as a statistical impossibility. The algorithms are literally going to notice that this person hasn't aged a single day in 3 decades. And the very moment that data is flagged, you lose your secret forever. And once you're exposed, well, congratulations, you are now the most valuable biological prize on Earth. Your new day-to-day reality involves dodging a terrifying lineup of hunters. Literally every pharmaceutical megacorporation, aging billionaire, and global military is going to desperately want to capture you, or at the very least, get their hands on your DNA. You're looking at decades of running from subpoenas, dodging black ops extraction teams, all deployed by well-meaning scientists who are practically foaming at the mouth to slice up your genome just to find that immortality switch. Next up is Era 3, the era of the grave, years 60 to 100. Now let's say you actually manage to stay off the grid and evade capture. The physical danger might start to subside, but a much heavier emotional weight settles in. It becomes this profound psychological test of endurance. The reality of your condition means you're sentenced to experience a heartbreaking series of outlived lives. And the psychological toll of that is just brutal. You're going to watch your friends grow old, move into retirement homes, and eventually pass away. Even more devastating, you'll have to watch your spouse wrinkle and gray while you stay completely trapped in youth. Eventually, you bury them. And terrifyingly enough, if you have children, you might actually have to bury them too. So to survive psychologically, you are forced into this ultimate, agonizing ultimatum. Choice A, you completely isolate yourself from human attachment just to protect your heart. Or choice B, you accept a life of continuous, rotating grief, knowing for an absolute fact that everyone you ever love will eventually wither and die in your arms. There's just no middle ground here. Finally, we hit Era 4, the ghost in the machine, years 15 and beyond. This brings us deep into the future. By this point, everyone who ever knew your original identity, they're dust. The world has moved on, and you have to completely adapt to an incredibly advanced digital world just to exist. To survive in a society blanketed by biometric scanners and facial recognition, you've got to employ extreme tactics. You have to become a total master of the dark web, forge blockchain IDs, manipulate digital ledgers. Basically, you live as a ghost. To avoid the kind of suspicion we talked about in Era 2, you have to pack up your entire life, change your name, relocate, and invent a brand new backstory every 15 to 20 years. It is a state of perpetual reinvention. But there's a flip side, the silver lining, the compounding edge. We really need to flip the script for a minute because it is not all just grief and running from government black ops. If you survive, you unlock an incredible advantage. Your true superpower isn't actually your physical youth, it's extreme time leverage and the sheer terrifying depth of knowledge you can acquire. Because you never suffer from cognitive decline or physical exhaustion, your capacity to learn is virtually boundless. I mean, over 2 centuries, you could casually knock out half a dozen PhDs. You could perfectly master 10 different languages. You could learn to play every major musical instrument. You have the ultimate luxury of pursuing absolute mastery in literally any subject you choose, over and over again. And that time leverage? Oh, it definitely applies to your finances too. Just a few smart, long-term investments made in your first 50 years would compound exponentially. We're talking unassailable financial empires a few centuries later. You would inevitably become this silent trillionaire shadow investor from behind a dozen shell corporations. You'd be quietly funding space exploration, backing cutting-edge scientific research, maybe even influencing major geopolitical shifts, all entirely off the radar. Let's just pause on this quote from the source material for a second because it hits really hard. The true curse of immortality isn't living forever. It's the fact that everyone else stops. That just captures the core tragedy of this whole anomaly. You keep moving forward, relentlessly, while absolutely everything and everyone you attach yourself to is tethered to a fixed point in time. By the time you reach the deep future, your entire perspective on the human race just fundamentally changes. You become the ultimate witness. You'd end up looking at humanity the way an adult looks at a room full of toddlers. Like, you love them, sure, but you're inherently detached from their short-term panics, their political squabbles, their fleeting little trends. You've seen it all happen dozens of times before. You become the only permanent anchor in a world of passing shadows. Which leaves us with this final profound question for you to ponder today. Knowing the logistics, the absolute isolation, the endless grief, and the need to just constantly erase your own identity over and over, could you handle it? Like, could you actually bear the weight of being the world's only permanent anchor? It is such a fascinating concept to grapple with. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the reality behind the fiction. Catch you next time.